Thank you for having the opportunity to talk to you. And it's always a wonderful experience to talk to entrepreneurs because they are different people. And a lot of people think about personal improvement, Persönlichkeitsentwicklung, and how to do that. And some go to therapy or to a coach, and some do cosmetics or whatever. And I suggest go into entrepreneurship, because my experience after 40 years being in that field is it develops personality. People become more communicative, they become more lively, they have more ideas, and you see it. It is visible. They become looking better. And yes, because they develop some charisma. And so what I would like to share with you is, and if I look into my 40 years experience and try to distillate what is the essence of it, I would say it's an aspect you may not be so familiar with. I call it the entrepreneur as a composer. The entrepreneur as Komponist. What is a composer? A composer is not the dirigent, is not the one who manages the orchestra. He's not the one who plays the violin or piano or whatever. He's the composer. And what do you expect from a composer? You expect that he is creating something new, that he is not doing the same thing as everybody else is doing, or copying Mozart or Beethoven, but you expect that he is creating something new out of the instruments, out of the notes, music notes and whatever available. He creates something new. That is the basic task of the entrepreneur. He's not an inventor, he's not a technology man, he's not a researcher, he's the one who composes. And I would like to go into that a little bit deeper. You see how the iPhone was composed. Steve Jobs, was he a technology person? No. Somehow, yes, he understood about technology, but he was not a researcher, he was not an inventor. What he did was, and that is what this slide is showing, he looked at the available components. I call it the Komponenten. He looked what is available already. You know, Joseph Schumpeter said, it's not invention, it's innovation that is the basics of an entrepreneur. So what Steve Jobs did was, he looked what technology components are available and how can I compose it to a totally new product, which was called smartphone. That's what he did. And this Italian researcher, Mazzucato, has put it into a fine slide. So that is something we need to understand, not the invention, not doing deep tech, as now is a buzzword in Silicon Valley, but to use existing components and try to compose a new music piece like a musical composer. Now, we try to do something, and you know, I would like to talk about design. And you would say, what do we have to do with design? Yeah, if to be a good designer is not an irrelevant thing. So how long does it take to become a good designer? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? I suggest you have a group of entrepreneurs, we do it in 15 minutes. I promise you, you become a designer, a good designer, competing with the world best designers in 15 minutes. Okay, let's go on. I take the example of Ascot. You know, Ascot in England is famous for horse racing, but is also famous for fashion designers, and famous are the hats that are made from these fashion designers. And that are not a common designer, that are the best, brilliant minds in Great Britain. that do that. And now let's look into that, what they do. Interesting. Yeah. Creative design. Well, something extraordinary. You have to say that. Look, nature on your head. So, how can we compete with them? Let's look into that again. What is the system behind that design? Let's look at it. So, before we go into it that more deeply, we are composers. We are not mechanics. We are not the Hutmacher. We are not the one who takes the head and puts this kind of thing on top of that. We need somebody. We need components. We need somebody who is a guter handwerklicher Hutmacher, something good in doing something extraordinary on top of a normal head. So, if you look into that, what do these designs have in common? Was können wir vor die Klammer ziehen? I would say the shape, format, brilliant shapes, and of course color, and something, again, the format, the shape, and the material. So we have color, shape, and material. If we want to compete with them, they may be better. In their field of color, shape, and material, they may be better. But what if we invent a new perspective? How can we put a new perspective? And I tell you, entrepreneurship has a lot to do with finding new perspectives. What can we do to find a new perspective? So, I have said that. Now, we try to find new perspectives. Let's say lightning. We put lightning on the head, a battery and some lights, and suddenly you have kind of a little disco show on your head. So, it's something new. Then these designers don't have it. What else can we do? Motion. We can try motion, that it moves, like in a disco. So you have a disco lightning that moves on your head. Something that would put people's attention on your design, not on the design of these others. What else can we do? Art history. Art history. So now you see, the moment you go into art history, you have a huge spectrum. Ein riesiges Spektrum available to you that you can use. Kunstgeschichte, art history, or modern art. So suddenly we talk about composing. We do not talk about painting, and we do not talk about anything else. We talk about composing. So if we compose, we can use all these fields and suddenly try to make our own heads. And of course, technology, digital innovation. You could do something like a band that gives news on your head, or you say, I'm available for dates, and I make the red color, or don't interrupt me, black color or gray color. I don't want to be with anybody. So lots of possibilities. So suddenly you're a designer using huge fields that are available to you. And now let's look into that. That could be a nice head, a little bit conventional, but nevertheless, competing with these other heads, not so bad. Or, of course, Rembrandt, tradition. Or, you go into that, Kandinsky. I've taken that because it's the Hutnadel. You can fix it with this kind of thing. You can use Kandinsky as the Hutnadel. Or something like that. You have a huge field. You just go to Google Pictures and choose whatever you like, and it's an indefinite kind of specter that you can use. You can compete with any designer because he does not have these big fields to his availability, or something like this, or something like this. Or if you are engaged in social entrepreneurship or political entrepreneurship, try something like this, a campaign against tobacco. So that's what I wanted to show to you, how to compete with the best design minds in a way as an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is a composer. Yeah, and just to make a note in Marcel Proust is somebody who has put that in very fine words. It's not conquering new lands. It's looking with new eyes, new perspectives. Understand entrepreneurship as a composer with new perspectives. That's what I wanted to say to you. Thank you.
Günter, I have to say thank you for always bringing back my motivation into entrepreneurship, because you always manage to focus on the creativity, on the creative process. And that for me is a big motivator, maybe by far biggest motivator, to be the one working creatively on things. I don't know if many of you can relate to that. When I first started studying, I chose something because I loved to work creatively. So I went into architecture. Entrepreneurship was never on my map. And only in my late 20s, when I got so bored of the corporate world, I somehow ended up looking into entrepreneurship. Read the first 2-3 books. One of them was yours. And it really gave me the idea that, first of all, it's possible to start something without having money, without having a lot of connections, without being already in your 50s. And it gave me it made me brave enough to try. And then also to see that there's a lot of creativity involved, which motivated me. So thank you for that, first of all. And then the thing that you always say in your books is, as the founder, you should work on the business and not maybe in the beginning, but on the long term, not work in the business. You said it's leadership versus day-to-day management. So my first question, how do I make sure that I find the right moment to get out of the day-to-day?
First, we have to understand that it is two very different things. Leadership is you look at the horizon, or you should look at the horizon. New technologies, new competitors, new trends in consumers' behavior, and so on. As an entrepreneur, as a leader, you have to look into that. So day-to-day business is quite the contrary. It's about keeping order, Ordnung halten, creating routines that you do not need to start every day in a new way. You have to settle conflicts with your employees. You have to deal with suppliers that don't fit with the quality. You have unsatisfied customers, and it's a lot of trouble. And you work 8 hours, and in the evening you are really tired, and you will not be able to be a leader and look at the horizon. So you have to. It's not a question, how can I do it and should I do it or not? You have to. Entrepreneurship needs leadership. Management, keeping order, can be learned. And you have lots of masters of business administrations in the tens of thousands that leave these business schools every year. Go for one. Go for one who is good in keeping order. And if you have a small enterprise, if you start a small enterprise, you don't even need something like these managers. That is later when you have 15, 50, 100 people, then you should go into professional management, but not with 3 or 5 people. I always say a mother educating alone with their 2 children most probably is a better organizer than these masters of business administration. Business administration in science history was developed for the big companies. In the end of the 19th century, huge companies were created, Krupp or Rockefeller. You need business administration in a scientific way. You cannot organize Krupp with your Daumenpeilung or so. But in a small enterprise, there is nothing with business administration. Look, as a mother with 2 children, the train comes into the station, one child cries, I need toilet. The other child cries, I want something to eat. So what are you doing? You have to decide. Should I miss the train, or what is the least problem? Child has no toilet or cries or whatever. That's more into daily business in a small group. Anyway, so think about, it's about division of labor. Division of labor is something self-explaining. Adam Smith has wrote a book 300 years ago about the benefits of division of labor, Arbeitsteilung. So use it. You need to use it. If not, you go to hell. Unfortunately, entrepreneurship is close to going to hell. You have to be aware of that. If you become just a self-employed and you have to work 8, 10, 12 hours, as some people say, that's entrepreneurship is not at all, no. If you become this self-employed with something that everybody else is doing, in my neighborhood in Berlin, there are 8 haircutters and about 10 bakery shops. So that is the hell. They really earn not much money, they work hard, and that's self-employed or mom and pop shop. The English terms are much more decisive, concrete than the German terms. Unternehmertum, very, it's like fork. Self-employed means you are kleiner Selbstständiger and you have to work hard. It's not entrepreneurship. You have to take the possibilities, the opportunities of entrepreneurship. Don't become a self-employed going to hell. It's the hell on earth to be a small, because our societies do not care for these self-employed small entrepreneurs. They are not really treated well. The others have, employees have the trade unions and have the Sozialstaat. As a little entrepreneur, you are close to the hell. Keep that in mind.
Let's take an example. For example, eBüro. You've been a business angel in that. I remember that very well because when I did my first business, CID outsourcing company, that was the component I used first. Really nice service where you can call and a professional assistant will pick up the call and yeah, you can say pretend they are sitting in an office even though you work remotely. So it's actually perfect for digital nomads as well. Using that as an example, and you've been involved in this business right from the beginning, where was the point where you separated between leadership and day-to-day management?
Well, my first company was in 1979, Ecotopia, wonderful name, still existing. Second was T-Campaign. I was a professor of economics and later became a professor of entrepreneurship. And I didn't have the time to sit in an office for 8 hours. And I'm not good at that. I'm impatient. I'm trying to Publikumsbeschimpfung, hit on people, say I shake you, that is poor work what you did. Or I'm not good at that. I'm not a good Personalführung. I'm not good at that. I got for somebody else who is patient, who is nice, and he likes to sit in the office, and he has a little bit tendency of sadism and policeman, which is also a good ingredient to really check. Not only trust people, you have to check. If somebody is not working well or somebody is bad-mouthing the whole operation, you should not accept it. I learned when somebody is giving bad vibes to the group, you have to take him out or her out. If somebody spits into the soup, the others don't like the soup anymore. It is one person can poison the whole atmosphere, and you have to go against it and say, no, I don't accept that. It's important. I remember a successful young lady, successful entrepreneurship, and from one day to the other, she quit. And I asked her, why did you do that? You were successful. And she said, I could no longer aushalten. I could no longer make it to be the boss. I wanted to be loved by everybody, and as the boss, they hate me or they don't like me. And I could not sustain it any longer. So I quit. And I said, oh my God, you should have, and I come to your question at the beginning, you should have got somebody into your business who is that bad guy or girl who exercises some discipline. Yeah, you need not be the boss. And particularly if you don't like it and you're not good. Some people like it, and I don't like it. Ja, in German am Unternehmen arbeiten, nicht im Unternehmen. On the business, not in the business. It's not the main theory in management. And there are some older Mittelständler, some entrepreneurs in old age, and say that is terrible. You cannot leave the business to your employees. They will do all kind of nonsense. No. You have to have somebody who keeps order, but you don't have to do it yourself.
The question maybe for everybody who's still doing it alone, and since you also say brain versus capital, you can do something without capital, so you need to have at least a certain point where the money comes in to pay that person. Would you say that is right when that money is available, or is there anything, any point of time or moment you would recommend to do that switch?
The things that I founded or was a business angel, I always emphasized bootstrapping. Bootstrapping means you start small, test it out, you make mistakes, you correct the mistakes. If you go in with big money and put everything on one approach, and it turns out there are some mistakes or some contradictions, you go under. You have to keep in mind, and I wonder that it's not totally common knowledge, you have to keep in mind 80% of all newly founded enterprises do not exist after 5 years. 80% fail. I was recently in Tel Aviv before the war. They have a wonderful Tel Aviv entrepreneurship ventures that provides support and capital to their founders. And that guy said the 80% rule is wrong. It's 90%. It's 90%. There may be some survivors, but they do not really well, and then they give up. So you have a huge failure rate. And how to deal with it. And one solution to that is bootstrapping. Try it out first before you go into full risk. Try it out. In the beginning, you do mistakes, there's no question. But do mistakes on a small scale, and do mistakes within your customers that you know. Start with your family, start with your friends, start with some people that are well-minded towards you. So if there's a mistake, they say, I remember tea campaign. In the beginning, we were not good controllers. We were loving the producers, no controls. Then a customer picks up the package, opens it, and there was a little leguan, a little, what is it, Idex, a little something, shock. So if that happens in America, you have to pay $2 million for trauma or something. That lady said, Professor, I just wanted to tell you it should not happen, and just wanted to tell you. So she didn't take action against me. Or there were small splinters of wood. Look, these tea boxes are painted with some terrible, to make it durable, some terrible substance. And of course, these splinters of the tea chest should not get into the tea. It's totally anathema. So, but that happened. So some people called and said, we have found little splinters of wood in your tea. I said, oh my God, because we invented chemical analysis and no chemicals in tea. So what happened? Where do the splinters of wood coming from? Some people in Hamburg that we didn't control were opening the tea chest. And it takes time, you have to open it nail by nail, and so on. They said, but we are brilliant. We take a saw, we saw it, and we keep the vacuum cleaner on top so that it sucks the splinters. You can imagine the result. That was where the little wooden splinters were in the tea. Of course, we had to stop that practice immediately. But imagine if we had gone into big business, it had ruined our reputation. But with our friends and comrades and some colleagues, they said, Faltin, it should not happen, just to tell you. So you learn, that is important. So I'm a fan of bootstrapping. Start small, you almost don't need much money. You have a little bit of savings, some friend, the family put in the savings. Even in the US, 70% are financed by family, friends, and fools. The friends of the fools are the ones that believe in you. So 70%, because we every day read Silicon Valley, 500 US dollars. The German Verena Pauster says you need capital. Everybody talks about capital. That's why I have written that book, was out of wood, out of anger, that I said, no, it's not capital. It's brains, it's fantasy, it's creativity, and it's trying out carefully, as a proof of concept. Try out, you will make mistakes, but do the mistakes on small scale. Don't do the mistakes on big scale.
Talking of brain, compared to capital, capital is what startups get or what big companies get. So when you go into brain only, you have to test, and then eventually you don't want to hire people immediately. What you always also say is think in components. How would you say is the right, how do I choose what to use for components, what to delegate also, or as an entrepreneur also what to keep to myself? Should I do what I can do best or what I like to do? So could that also imply, if I love numbers, I should become the CFO in my own business because I'm motivated? Or somebody who doesn't love numbers, he will delegate it or use components. So how do I choose between those three possibilities?
So first of all, there's one huge advantage in entrepreneurship, and you should really use it. As you are the boss, you can choose what do you do? Which field of competence would you take for yourself? Choose the one that you like and choose the one that you are a little bit capable of. You have learned something, you know what you like and you don't what you don't like. Most people don't like bookkeeping, accounting. Go for somebody. There are brilliant accounting people. Go for them. Don't do it yourself. So choose what you like. And what you like, probably you are better than in things that you don't like, because you spend more time, you spend more fantasy on it. Choose what you like, first of all. Everything else, go for components. Components can be the team. You choose a team that not competes with you, but somebody for accounting, somebody for the technology, somebody for marketing maybe. And team is a way of Arbeitsteilung, division of labor, or if you cannot do it in team, not everything can be done from the team. You need components from outside, and then capital comes in. You have to pay these people. And in the beginning, you need not so many people to employ. And you have a small group. You have a small group, and it's a learning group. And the advantage by using components is you can choose professional people. Again, professional people are not so cheap, but they are professional. Usually, they are cheaper than non-professionals. Also, ich sage immer, wenn Ihnen Professionalität zu teuer ist, versuchen Sie es doch mal mit Unprofessionalität. Dann wissen wir alle, da wird es noch teurer. So choose professional people and pay them because they are cheaper than if you do it yourself or with unprofessional people. And yeah, capital comes in at some time, and then you have to decide carefully. You have to walk very carefully. There is nobody donating your money. These American venture capitalists, they are wonderful in, I would not say deceiving, but they create a misleading atmosphere. They say, you are so great, you are such a great person. I put all my money on your brain, you are the greatest person on earth. And go ahead, and we trust in you. And you feel, wow, you are 22 years old and now get 2 million. Wow, that's beyond my expectations. What that person does not see at that moment is that the 2 million are only invested because this contract, 110 pages of American jurisdiction and American business English and juristisches English, is that there are milestones, and you get the 2 million because you have milestones to create 4 million. And if you do not get the milestones, the money is taken back, or you are taken to court, or you are fired from your own company very quickly. They said, you are fired, you are totally incapable. You have 10 minutes to leave your Schreibtisch, desk, and that's it. Yeah, that happens. I have seen that. And people say, oh, how come? Yeah, that is American business culture. Hire and fire, and always give great atmosphere, misleading atmosphere, I must say, or deceiving atmosphere, or be careful, be careful.
Big value in our community is freedom. That's something that connects us, even though that can mean many things. But talking of business, combining with freedom as a founder, it also means to be able to live a lifestyle in the way you want to live it. So we also talked about that in the tea campaign you founded. You said you are happy to have a team of 30 people because it keeps everything more flexible. Would you say there's a certain sweet spot to combine entrepreneurship with personal freedom?
Yeah, first, as I said, choose what you like to do. And talent is what you like to do and what you can. And that's not the same. What you like is not necessarily the same what you really are capable of. But there's a Schnittmenge, there's something overlapping, and that's called talent. I would call it talent. If what you like and what you can comes together, that creates something like talent. because you learn. You're plus an open-minded. You get learning from all kinds of sources. It's not like in school. Our educational system ruins creativity and ruins that way of learning. So you learn talent, and that gives you, of course, some strengths. And to choose freedom needs some strengths as well. And I never, from the beginning, never had an office. I was the boss, of course, T-Campaign, but I never had an office or a desk in T-Campaign because I wanted to stay there. And if you have an office, it's always empty. So you see, where is the boss? No, the boss is there, but not in the office. The boss is there. They can call me anytime, or I call anytime. And I'm the boss. That must be clear. Lead entrepreneur and management team. We are not all the same. That's another trap. You have to be careful, particularly with women. You have to make clear that you are the one who has created it. If you have created it two people, then you are two bosses. But make sure that you are the lead entrepreneur and there's a management team. That in case there are differences and strife, then you go for, you decide, you are the boss. Finally, you listen to everybody carefully. There may be good arguments. Listen to them carefully. But then you decide and say, no, this is what I decided and this is a final decision. So lead entrepreneur and management team. Be careful to make sure from the beginning that you are the lead entrepreneur. That gives you another freedom, not to get into trouble with these debates and so on. Your point is, of course, can I sit in Bali or in Chiang Mai or elsewhere? Yes, you can, of course. When people say, Faltin is in Thailand, I say, no, I'm 300 milliseconds distant from you by satellite phone. I'm 300 milliseconds different. When I'm in Grunewald and the company is in Babelsberg, it's much longer to come there than this 300. So I'm present. It's not that I'm elsewhere. It may be in Bali or somewhere. You need internet access and a good smartphone, and that's it. And of course, you have to learn to delegate. This is another issue. A lot of people say, I have tried delegation, it doesn't work. I have given a job, and finally it comes out, I wasted a lot of time and money, and then I have to do the job myself because that employee was not good. No. Delegation means you have to very precisely, and that's again the composition, you are the composer, you have to very precisely define. Beethoven is not just boom, 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 but is very precisely music. Very, for all the orchestra instrument, every one has its part. It's not to say, I'm the composer, make a lot of noise and do it, go on. No, that's not delegation. Beethoven is a very precise, as every composer, very precise into the details. So if you say, what I have in mind is the following, and I've thought it through, and this is the concept, and please put it on paper or put it to phone calls or whatever. Now you are in charge to execute it. But you are the brain who has created the concept. You have to create the concept. If you have not a concept and the details, you cannot delegate. You may have brilliant employees who seem to, vielleicht ahnen sie, was da im Kopf des Entrepreneurs ist, aber meistens klappt das nicht. You better describe precisely what you want to have and then say you are the executor. If you have a problem, if you cannot go ahead, call me immediately and we talk about it. But don't come 2 weeks later and present something that is worthless. Don't do that. It's not delegation.
Before we talk about business concepts, you said 300 milliseconds away. I had to think of the situation with e-Büro back then. I had a customer from Berlin calling was an architect who wanted to outsource some drawings to us, and I was on Bali, and there was some animal sounds in the back, and he called, and the e-bureau connected to me, and he was asking, "Oh, you're not in Berlin. You must be in the countryside in Brandenburg," while I was sitting in Bali. So that was possible with e-bureau. And there's a lot of great services for this now. Even you want to create this feeling, because some customers still need to, they kind of need to think you are sitting in that office, even though you are not.
So there are all kinds of perception how business should be done. Create your own perception and tell it to the people and say, I am in US or I'm in Bali or I'm elsewhere. And this is my concept. And I expect from you that you deal with me. And what I say is call me anytime at night, or if it's important, Sunday, whatever, it's not a problem. But this is the style we work. And if that is something unacceptable for you, go for another job, but not with me. My experience is the moment you say it very openly, not hiding that you are in Bali or taking a trip or something, say it openly. Yes, I need it for my recreation or I need it for good ideas. Then this is the working style in our company. Either you accept it or not, and try out, and you will see not so bad. Giving ownership of change to the people. But giving ownership of change to the people means you have to have a quite clear-cut concept. If not, they do something, but not what you have in mind. So giving ownership to people again needs you have to define the frame within they can work.
You question one saying that business, people often say business ideas are not important, only execution matters. But you are holding against that, because you talk a lot about business concepts and how important they are. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, even after writing Kopfschläg Kapital and doing a vendetta against this kind of thinking, ideas are a dime for a dozen. Ideas are nothing. It's execution that matters. Sounds reasonable, but is not. Sounds reasonable, unfortunately, but it is not. It's not about ideas. The German word Idee ist unbrauchbar. The English word idea is not as bad as the German word Idee. It's not the same idea. In English, it's more a concept. And the textbooks are saying idea creation, idea development, idea refinement. That means the German word idea looks more like a first idea, an Einfall, an initial idea. Idea in English is more than that. And when I talk about, I don't like to use the word Idee. I talk about entrepreneurial design. Also ein Gesamtkunstwerk, which has many legs, not just quality or price, but you have to create something that stands on many legs. If somebody undercuts your price, you are finished? No, you need other legs. The tea campaign, the price was competitive, quality was competitive. We were pioneers in fair trade. We were pioneers in chemical residues in tea. And we were pioneers in reforestation in 1972. So we had a number of legs, and customers choose us because of reforestation or chemical residues or price, whatever. So to create such a concept needs time. It took me 3 or 4 years. It is not something you go in the forest and suddenly have a great idea, one variety of tea only, and in big packages that looks like a totally nonsense idea. But if you study tea trade carefully, you see the problem is a huge range of sortiment, a huge range of sorts. And if you have 100 or 150 different teas, you cannot source at the tea plantation because that would be too expensive and too much bureaucracy. You go to the wholesaler. And the wholesaler goes to the importer, and the importer goes to the exporter, and the exporter buys at the plantation. That makes tea expensive. So how can you go yourself to the tea plantation? You have to have a big order, 4 tons at least, 4 tons of tea. This may be 1 ton in this home, 4 tons of tea. So how can you sell 4 tons of tea if you have a good competitive price? We were 1/3 of our competitors. Paul Schrader in Bremen was the #1 in tea business in Germany until we came. We made exactly 1/3 of his price and roughly the same quality. And of course, people were queuing up to buy our tea, and our problem was that we couldn't handle the organization. I had taken my own students of economics, but they are not good in organizing. We were always not up to the task that we had to do. And customers were calling, when is my tea coming? And we said, we don't know. Yeah, you must know. Is it already sent to me? We don't know. We are working hard, but we don't know. So you need an accountant and some organizer who cannot do it with students alone. And yeah.
That once again is good to hear for somebody who takes a lot of energy out of creativity, because working on the concept is such a creative process. But then there's also a lot of people who want to start a business but have another motivation. I remember being on your yearly event in Berlin, Entrepreneurship Summit, and you had stickers and you said, okay, I'm very creative, but I'm not good in execution. And then you had stickers, I'm very good in execution, but I'm not very creative. I found that very good idea to connect people in their strengths.
Yeah, you have to create a team of workers that complement each other, die sich ergänzen. And not everybody can do everything. Der Unternehmer als Alleskönner, that was the concept before Kopfschlägkapital was written, that you have an idea, you go to the Commerce Ministry, Industrie- und Handelskammer, and they tell you, you have to take a course in accounting, you have to take a course in marketing, you have to take a course in Personalführung, and of course in storage management and tax problems and Vertragsrecht und Unternehmensrecht und Arbeitsrecht. And so the people are really put down to a huge, overwhelming range of tasks that they should learn, and what they forget is to look at the horizon, which is the most important. To create a business model that is better than what exists. Schumpeter. What is your innovation? What is a disruptive innovation that makes you very competitive, so you can accept mistakes and little failures and still survive because your concept is much better than what others have? That is the task of the lead entrepreneur, to create a business model. I call it entrepreneurial design. Gesamtkunstwerk, das ist so gut, dass es Fehlschläge aushält.
I see what you say also as an invitation to everybody here to also talk openly about their weaknesses as well, because only then you can find people who are the right match to work with you. Last topic, the risk of entrepreneurship as well. That's something you mentioned, the 90%. How can I make sure to belong to the 10%?
Yeah, by creating a really good business model and good entrepreneurial design that has so many advantages that you still survive even when some doesn't work in practice as you expected. And so take your time and work on that concept and improve it and test it. My experience is people start to fall in love with their concept, and they believe it's genius and it is great, and people will queue up, go out of your room and test it. are you willing to buy my product? And don't fall into the trap of social desirability, soziale Wünschbarkeit, where people say, oh, you are a founder, great, I hope you're, maybe I could buy your product. No, you should have a purchase contract and say, will you sign this contract? And the customer will say, and when will the product come? You say, I don't know. I may not even found the company, but I need contracts. I need good feedback, real feedback, echtes, wie sagt man, glaubwürdiges Feedback, whether my product is good or not. And so people say, this is strange, you cannot go out and ask people to sign a contract, and next moment you say, I do not know whether I found the company. Yes, you can. This is even a proven method, and it's called subscription. Subscription. In the old days, when you have a big lexica, the publisher asked you for a subscription and said only if you have a minimum of 5,000 or 10,000 books, we will print it. If not, the subscription will be terrible. Yeah. So it is a proven concept. Call it subscription. And yeah, you need this kind of feedback, real feedback. And of course, you can ask, why don't you buy the product? I don't like the price. I don't like the product. I don't like the design, something. So learn about it, go back. Proof of concept means in the process of idea development, of entrepreneurial design, in the process you go out and test it and learn and come back and continue creating. Design thinking is a good method for that. Design thinking is overvalued. It's not so much into it that people promise you. But they are good in prototyping, going out, getting feedback, go back, and make something like an improving spiral of a better business model. For that, design thinking is good. So learn before you go into founding the company and before you set up shop, before you start your business. That is part of the work on the entrepreneurial design. You need to have a really convincing business model.
I would love to...
Risk, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's...
So proof of concept minimizes risk because a lot of things become clear before you are in real situations. And there is a lot of misunderstanding about risk. A German president in the end of the 90s said that there must be a strong, ein Ruck muss durch Deutschland gehen. There must be more people taking a risk. Sorry for the Bundespräsident, but he has not looked into it very carefully. You have to avoid risk. You should not be one of these 80 or 90%. You have to avoid risk. What is right is that you are in a risky environment. You are not a state government employee. You are not a teacher with a lifetime term. You are in a risky environment. That is true. But a risky environment means you have to avoid risk. Imagine you are a mountaineer and you are on the mountain in a difficult Mount Everest-like situation. So you shouldn't take risk, not at all. You have to avoid risk at any cost. You have to avoid risk because one little step, a wrong step, may be the end of the whole thing. So if you are in a risky environment, you have to avoid risk. That is misunderstood. You need not take risks. You have to be aware you are in a risky environment and you have to prepare good preparation. As a mountaineer, you need training. You need good equipment. You need to watch the weather. You need to a lot of things to master difficult mountaineering. To master it, you need a lot of things in preparation, but you shouldn't take risk.
So the chances are in the risky environment, but not in the risk, and you have to prepare well.
Yeah, you have to avoid risk at any cost, because you may easily get into this 80 or 90%.
It's a very good way to look at things. Before we finish, I would love to invite the audience for a few questions. How many questions can we do, or minutes?
Let's see how long the questions are. But Tim is going. First of all, thank you for Günter Faltin. Big round of applause. So many thought-provoking impulses. I got a lot of questions in my head, but I bet you too. So these two team members are going around, and Tim is going to moderate the order of the questions.
Thorsten, please.
Yeah, first of all, dear Günther, thank you for your valuable and inspiring insights and sharing your experiences. Really appreciate that. And having these wonderful people here with us and looking back, sitting on that chair in Bangkok, looking back to all your experiences, your achievements you made in years and decades. What is the one thing you regret?
I shouldn't have stayed too long at university. I should have left university, even a lifetime tenure, a good payment, and to be a professor is highly privileged in Germany, no question. I should have dropped that and said I become a 100% entrepreneur and go into that. It is a lot more fulfilling. Instead, I was with these university bureaucrats, and my colleagues, they are brilliant colleagues, but they are also not so brilliant colleagues. And man reibt sich auf in endlosen Debatten, die eigentlich auf der Stufe von Vierjährigen sind. Meins ist größer als deins. Das habe ich einmal laut gesagt bei einer großen Versammlung. Ich habe das Gefühl, wir sind hier hochbezahlte Leute und wir sind emotional auf der Stufe von Vierjährigen. Meins ist größer als deins und auch haben. He has a project, gets a lot of money, auch haben. Auch haben. I should have dropped that more consequently. Yeah.
Who's got a question? Who's got a question?
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear all your feedback. And I did have a question. You talked a lot about the 90% and risk. I want to challenge you with the idea and see how you think about that. Because one of the things that I've learned by doing business around the world is the cultural aspect of how do we see failure. And I know that in the German culture, Austrian culture, Swiss culture, failure is very, very stigmatized. While I know that I learned from my mentors who are multi-billionaires how it's important to actually be okay with failing and the trial and error in the process of building the perfect business model and the perfect product. I would love to hear your perspective on that.
You are right. I'm sure talking about the continental Europe. It's even worse in France than in Germany or Austria and Switzerland. And I have been in Asia for many years. It's different here. To be an entrepreneur is more common. The family is backing you. It's not saying you should get a state job. Of course, it is more helpful environment. In the Anglo-Saxon culture, failure is accepted. In German culture, failure is not accepted. A German bankruptcy, is a kind of scar in your life forever. Don't take it too easily. What is told to us from the Anglo-Saxon culture is do failure, stand up, and next failure and stand up again. it's not so easy in our culture. It's not so easy. Try to avoid that or go to Anglo-Saxon culture. But you are right, it is, what I said is typical for this continental way of Missachtung or downgrading of entrepreneurship. I tell you, I was at the left-wing university, Freie Universität Berlin, in the 80s. The leftists had the akademische Lufthoheit. They were the theory Marx oder Murks. Ich war natürlich Murks, klar. Ich war Murks. Und es hieß, der Faltin will kleine Kapitalistenschweine züchten. It would have been better to leave and say, make your own nonsense, and yeah. So it's our culture. You are right to put the cultural aspect. It's not true for Asia or.
Failing is part of 90%, and we don't try it. And that's for me the danger of stigmatizing the 90%. The real question is what happens to those 90% after that. I mean, that's where I'm interested in. Who is able to rise from that and try again and learn from these mistakes and failures to get to the next idea, the next thing?
We had once invited to our entrepreneurship summit a lady from the MIT Media Lab. They were very early in entrepreneurship, excellent people, MIT in Boston. And she said, yes, only 20% really thrive, but from these 20%, again, 20% become really famous and excellent. The other 80% somehow survive and they make money, but they keep being small and not really extraordinary. So it's only around 4% that really are excellent. And to be one of these 4%, you need an excellent business model. I come back to that. You cannot come with just doing something. You need to work on some excellent. You have to become the Beethoven of your field to really excel, and it is possible. Why? Because there are not so many good competitors. Yeah, the big companies, they have a lot of bureaucracy. Tea companies, they have a lot of bureaucracy. They believe they know how tea business is done. They were laughing about me for a few months, then they were not laughing any longer because the customer came to me. And so you need a brilliant business model. Work on that.
Thank you. Who else?
So you said a lot about the proof of concept and being in a risky environment. And I like the idea, but one that came a lot of times to me, that one idea where people say you have like a bag of beans, the concept you have, and every time you fail, you take out a bean. And you can only be like really successful in a new field that you go in if you empty the bag. And the quicker you fail, and the more often you fail, can be small things, big things, doesn't really matter. And not necessarily financially, like it can be anything. And you only will be successful within your field when you empty the bag. And then you did all the mistakes that are there, and then can really work from there. But this comes from execution, so really the doing thing. I would like your idea or just to think about that concept.
Of course, you have to learn. You make mistakes, but do the mistakes on small scale. Do it before you start the company. I talk about the process before you start, what the Americans say, set up shop. Before you found the company and go to anonymous customers. Start within your own community, start within your own background, family or whatever. You will do mistakes, that is not avoidable, but do it in small scale. Do the mistakes in small scale and try to comprehend the field that you will work in as much as possible. You have to become an expert in your field. You will still even do mistakes, but you have to be quite brilliant in the field, even if you were an outsider. I was a coffee drinker. I was not a tea man. And it helped me to look at the tea business without emotional, and I thought it's quite crazy because they believe the convention is you have a huge assortment, huge number of teas, prevents them from going to the source. So I dropped the idea of assortment and stick to one tea only, but a good quality. Chiang is regarded the highest tea area in the world, and with a winter break, which is nowhere else. And the first flush after the winter break is an excellent tea. So I took that tea and said, why should you drink other teas? That is the best one, and we make it cheap. Make it available make a champagne available for everybody, from champagne to campaign. It was a sentence that I created. The champagne, make it available for everybody, and we do it by connecting directly to the plantation, leaving out the intermediaries, all the middlemen, and suddenly you are very competitive.
Thank you very much.
Noch zwei Fragen können wir machen. 2 questions. There's one, please. In the green T-shirt. Perfect.
Simple question. How did you get your first customers for the tea campaign? And in addition, was that before or after ordering 4 tons of the gin machine?
Well, yeah, you got me in a good contradiction. I was thinking it over and over again, and after a while I found it must be successful. We have a very competitive price, we have an excellent quality, we do fair trade, we do reforestation, and on, and. It cannot fail. So I was thinking about how much is 4 tons of tea, even if I'm totally wrong. It's about 4,000 kgs. So how long will tea be tasty? And law says 3 years. So I said, okay, the maximum risk is nobody buys my tea. I have 4,000 packets of tea. I give it to everybody, and it cost me something like 15,000 Deutschmarks, and that's it. But I was fully convinced. My students were not convinced. I remember when I started the semester, usually I had 50 or 100 people. I was a popular young professor, and I said, now I offer a course where you can participate in the founding of a company, left-wing university. There were 5 people. And I explained my concept, and there was no reaction. I said, something must be wrong here. I thought they said, oh, great. Nobody said anything. Somebody stood up and said, will we get a certificate for this course? Actually, I was not prepared for that question. And I was thinking that, yes, of course, why not? Why should not such a course give a certificate? You get a certificate. So they were quiet. Then a lady student stood up and said, half looking to me and half looking to the other 4, I must say it in German, Leute, merkt ihr denn nicht, wie bescheuert der Typ ist? Nur eine Sorte Tee und die in Großpackungen so 1 Kilogramm. Eine Sorte Tee und die in Großpackungen so 1 Kilogramm. Völlig bescheuertes Konzept. So nobody was believing it but me. My colleague said, Professor, you will blame yourself. No, don't do it. I was very certain that it will work. So what we did were I was ordering the 4 tons, and there was a Stadtmagazin tip in Berlin, and they said there's a crazy professor at the university, and he has a crazy idea, and he is so crazy that he, in fact, ordered these 4 tons, and this is on the way to Berlin already. Look how crazy this person is. So we started taking a table from the university room. At that time it was allowed, and I had put a few of the tea that came in my car, and we was putting it on the table, and we were starting to write the prices and something. And there were students queuing up and said, is this the professor that we read about in that Stadt magazine? So there was a queue, and a few people bought, and we were sold out for a few kgs. And my students, and I myself, I was very certain, but at least it was something, it works in practice as well. So, but you got a contradiction. I ordered it. I was so certain that what can be wrong when you offer an excellent tea very cheaply and cannot go. People ask me, when is the concept, when is my business concept ripe? When is it ready to go to the market? I say you feel it in your butt, you feel it in your hintern. You cannot sit quietly anymore. You say, it must be done. It is like, I call my businesses brain children, Ideenkinder. And it's like a real child. It starts not here, but the brain child starts here. And then it somehow develops. And then there is a point when you say, now it's ready. Now I feel it must be successful.
So who's
And
got a
then
feeling in their butt?
You feel it here.
Thank you. Last question, please.
Thank you very much. I have I loved your analogy of entrepreneurs being composers. However, we all know that Beethoven was a grumpy, old, deaf, depressed man. How do we make sure that, or do you think that entrepreneurship is a path of happiness or not?
If you really stick to what you like and was in einem leicht fällt, what is easy for you to do, what I call talent. You like it and you have some capabilities to do it. That is one good prescription. And then you have to work hard on the business model. And the happiness is you create a child, a brain child that is doing well. And on top of that, it makes a lot of money. It makes a lot of money. And I created, out of T-Campaign, it's a successful company, I created my own foundation that is financing the Entrepreneurship Summit, or the other EBO are not more successful. And so you become a financially independent person, which is also a part of happiness. Yeah. But to have good children and do what you like and be economically independent, that is a good part of happiness.
Thank you.
Perfect last words. And I just want to add, thank you so much, Günter, for being such an inspiration. And I think there might be people sitting here who wouldn't sit here if they wouldn't have read your first or your second book. I definitely took a lot out of it, and especially in the German environment that we talked about, where entrepreneurship is not the first thing you would think about. It helps so much to dare to do things. And yeah, I'm really happy you are here. And we don't have a special membership, Ehrenmitgliedschaft, but I would love to give it to you as the first member of Citizen Circle for Ehrenmitglied.
Thank you.
So we are basically creating it with you.
I wanted to say in the beginning, my compliments to this group. I have been with a lot of workshops and groups and whatever. It is a different atmosphere. It is, it is a mindset. It is a kind of inspiration to be with people like you. My compliment to you as a founder, and my compliment to everybody of you. It is an approach to life, as I said, Persönlichkeitsentwicklung. It makes sense. Go on with it, but do it in the right way. Actually, I would suggest that you come to the Entrepreneurship Summit, and we should make a deal that you get a big discount, a 50% discount on the ticket or whatever. You will find other people very much the same. You meet entrepreneurs, you don't meet bankers, or you don't meet coaches, and you don't meet all these Förderinstitutionen, government people that talk about entrepreneurship with no idea and experience about it. And with us, it's the entrepreneurs, and it's a good atmosphere. You have been there. It's a good atmosphere, and it helps to be with people who say it's great that you are an entrepreneur, and say you should get a state employment and go for a lifetime tenure and all these kind of things that is prevalent in German culture, still up to today. So go for it, and it is a good recipe for good life.
Let's do that.
Geglücktes
We are
Leben.
happy.
Es
In
geht
October, right?
geglücktes Leben.
October will be
Mid of October.
Mid of October.
12th, 13th of October in Berlin.
wonderful. Thank you very, very much.